1966. And now we are ready for the Wheaties Mile for world-class men athletes. And when you say world-class, each and every one of these runners, boy, just some tremendous athletes, including Steve Scott, who is the American record holder in both the 1,500 meters and the mile. And we talked to Steve earlier today. He ran the course, and we asked him what he thought about it and what kind of strategy he might have today.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to look at the course this morning. I jogged it up and back down, and I think it's a very nice course. It's beautiful, beautiful area to run with, and it seems to go very quickly. I think the only thing that I can see that might inhibit us a little bit is the wind is kind of uncharacteristic throughout the course. Sometimes it's a headwind, sometimes it's a tailwind, but once you get into the race and the competitive atmosphere takes over, you kind of forget about the wind and everything else involved. But I'm looking forward to it.
Well, the runners are loosening up, and we're just about ready for the start of the race. Let's check in at the starting line with Channel 5 Joe Schmidt. Joe?
Last night I talked with Dick Brown, and Dick coached Mary Decker Slaney from 1981 to 1985. He listed Steve Scott as the favorite in this race, and a lot of people are picking Scott to win this race. The runners in this race are not receiving any prize money for winning it. They don't need any prize money to win it. They're on the line. That means competition, and real athletes really strive under competition. They don't need a big prize at the end of the line. Bob?
Okay, Joe, no doubt about it. When you talk about big athletes, we have them here today. If you follow running at all, even if you've just merely watched the Olympics, you've heard many of these names before. They are household names throughout the world. Steve Scott, Jim Spivey, John Walker, Eamon Coughlin. It's amazing for a first-time event that we were able to assemble this class of field.
Well, I think as Eamon said earlier in an interview, the organization for this race started months and months ago. Sometimes they have races and they all get thrown together in the last 3 months, but these runners have been planning on being here for quite some months, and I think it's a tribute to the organization. We've seen now the 5 races. They all went off well, and I'm really excited about the prospects for this men's race.
And the racers, the runners, are towing the line, so let's give you the lineup. In lane number 1, Steve Scott, the American record holder in both the 1,500 meter and the mile. Right next to him, the heir to the throne, number 26, Jim Spivey, 1985 U.S. 1,500 meter champion. Next to him, number 27, Chuck Aragon, 4th in the U.S. Olympic trials in the 1,500 meter. Number 30, Doug Padilla, is in the next lane. He placed 6th in the 5,000 meters out of Provo, Utah. Tom Byers, number 32, out of San Antonio, Texas. He's been injured for a year, returning to competition, and is capable of an upset. Might set the pace early. Ray Flynn from Ireland. He trains in Johnson City, Tennessee. Member of the 1984 Irish Olympic team, the Irish 1,500 meter champion. Number 34 from New Zealand, John Walker. The credits of this man, 1976 champion in the 1,500 meter at Montreal in the Olympics. Former world record holder in the mile. First man to run the mile under 3:50. It goes on and on. He is a great one, to say the least. Eamon Coughlin from Ireland, number 35, a world record holder. He is the current world record holder in the indoor mile at 3:49.78. Won 1983 5,000 meter world championship. While rounding out the field, number 49, Mike Slack. You see it there. And there you have it, the field of the world-class men's Wheaties Mile, and this is going to be a race, to say the least.
Well, we have a very good field. Steve Scott, just back from Europe. He was in that world record race that Steve Cram of Great Britain broke the world record, and Steve Scott was under 3:50 for a while. Ray Flynn won the Irish Championships this year, was 2nd in the British Championships. John Walker won the Fifth Avenue Mile last year and has been running well all year this year. But Jim Spivey was the American national champion at the 1,500 meters, the metric equivalent of the mile. In that race, he did defeat Steve Scott and Chuck Aragon. Chuck Aragon, a medical student from New Mexico, perhaps now the 3rd best miler in America, always wanting to knock off either Spivey or Scott. Doug Padilla, as you mentioned, 6th at 5,000 in the Olympics. This is a very top field, and it'll be interesting to see if the first quarter of a mile goes fast, because if that is fast, then the whole race should be quick.
They run out of the shadows of Washington Avenue. In the background, the fountains beneath the arches of the Northwestern National Life Insurance Building, and they approach 3rd Street as they run down the Nicollet Mall in the first annual Wheaties Mile for world-class men.
And right off the bat, we see Chuck Aragon and Steve Scott taking the lead. Scott with the lead. I find that a little strange because he is so sharp right now. He could really let it go until the last 100 meters and hope to outkick everyone and win the race. Steve Scott does really not need to have a fast pace today, but he's gone out. Maybe he's looking for a fast time. No sign yet of John Walker, the first man under 350 in the mile, the first man to run 100 sub-4-minute miles. He's back in the pack.
Tom Byers, also right up there on the outside on the left-hand portion of your screen, a man that you mentioned to me earlier, is very capable of pulling off an upset in this race.
Well, if anyone needs to run well here, it's Tom Byers. He's been hurt. This is his first race back. He has pulled some great upsets in the past. He won the Fifth Avenue Mile 2 years ago coming off an injury, so he'll be looking to do that again today. 59 seconds for the first 400 meters. Not fast enough for these guys, although it was uphill.
Steve Scott and Chuck Aragon, the two runners in front, as they're about at 7th Street right now, just passing by the IDS Tower, and they'll go underneath the IDS Skyway. You see Steve Scott, who is, of course, the record holder. He finished, what was it, 3rd or 4th in that Oslo mile?
Steve was 4th in the mile, just behind Sebastian Coe. The pace, 59 seconds fast, but not even quite as fast as the collegiate men. But from here on in, they should be getting even faster for each quarter mile because they are now on the flat part of the course. Steve Scott now still the leader and moving out with Chuck Aragon chasing him. Ray Flynn in red, back to about 6th place. Mike Slack on the far left, still up there on the pace. And on the right now, you see John Walker making his way to the front of the pack. He has sub-4 on his chest. He's run more sub-4-minute miles than any man. Ray Flynn now on the right. He likes to move early with maybe 600 yards left. So Ray Flynn working his way up. Next to him, 26, Jim Spivey, just where he'd like to be at this point in the race, letting the others break the wind for him, and Steve Scott continues to be the leader. 1:59 for the half mile, so they're right on 4-minute mile pace.
Steve Scott continuing to lead. Jim Spivey, the heir apparent as far as mile champion in the United States, right behind him. And they are approaching 11th Street.
And you can see the slight changes in form as they are really starting to work a little now in this third quarter. Scott trying to pull away. Aragon, 27, struggling, using the arms to stay with him. And Spivey blocked now from your sight, moving well, knowing that he has that good kick. 2:58 for the 3 quarters.
Steve Scott in control as they can now see the Hyatt Regency Hotel and, of course, that final turn as they will head for Grant Street in the final stretch run to the finish line.
Now they are downhill. They have pulled the ripcord. They should be sprinting at full speed. Tom Byers on the far left, still in the race, but Jim Spivey now moves up with Scott. Ray Flynn making the first move. Here goes Flynn with the first big move as they come around, and now they can see the finish line. Boy, Flynn really opened it up. Can Spivey come back on him, and what about Steve Scott?
They are past Grant Street. They are nearing the finish line, and it is Ray Flynn with a great move. Ray Flynn, Spivey trying to catch him. Ray Flynn will win it. Spivey will finish second. Ray Flynn with a tremendous move just before Grant Street moved into the lead and headed the rest of the way to the finish line.
3:55.8, the unofficial finishing time, and Ray Flynn really came on the last 300 yards. Steve Scott finished probably 5th or 6th after setting the pace for 8/10 of the way, but what a great race for Ray Flynn. Tom Byers had a good one, too.
We'll be right back. Back live on the Nicollet Mall at the finishing line on 14th Street. I am Bob Bruce along with Marty LaCroix. And Marty, you mentioned early in that race, the Wheaties Mile for men, that you were surprised that Steve Scott was in front early. Did that help Ray Flynn? Did that set his strategy for the race?
Well, it certainly didn't help Steve Scott. He faded badly after leading for most of the race. I don't know what he was up to. He certainly could have waited and risked it on a kick, but that certainly helped to take the pressure off of Jim Spivey and Ray Flynn. Ray usually likes a fast pace. The pace was not that fast. Here you see Ray just open it up, and I'm really amazed. No one else could really go with him there, even for 30 or 40 yards. He put the race away in a space of about 40 yards, quite unusual in a field of this caliber.
6 of the 9 runners under the 4-minute mark. The winner, Ray Flynn, 3:55.52. Jim Spivey ran 3:55.73, and John Walker 3:55.84.
Steve Scott just finishing at 4 minutes, and Doug Padilla 3:59. So this was quite a street mile with a number of men under 4 minutes. A good race, though. The women's race, same thing, a very close race in both of them, and that's what you like to see. The time is not that important in a street mile. It's how close the race was, and they don't come much closer than that men's mile.
Well, let's go to the winner of the men's Wheaties mile, and that is Ray Flynn, who's standing by with Rob Lear. Rob?
Bob, in fact, he is from Ireland. Ray Flynn is. He trains out of the University of Tennessee, and this is quite a race for yourself. You talked about that it was maybe a harder race than you would have thought.
Well, there was an excellent field here, first of all. There's a lot of very good runners, and Steve Scott went out quite hard, and I was finding it very difficult in the middle parts of the race. In fact, Steve was getting away by about 25 meters at some stage, and I worked very hard to catch him up. And on the downhill part before the quarter-mile split, I succeeded in catching up to him. And I was surprised because he was tired then, and I thought that he was holding back. And I passed and made a good sprint for home, but it was a very hard race. It was a difficult race.
How about the track itself, the conditions? Did they lend themselves to racing here today?
Yes, it was very good. The footing was good, and I enjoyed very much the race, except I never really could relax because the pace was on from the start.
And the time at all surprising, or is it about what you thought?
Well, it's very difficult to equate times on courses of this nature because they're all different, meaning that they're different on undulations, uphill and downhill, and it's very hard to equate. It's a good time.
What's next for you?
I'm going to Europe on Tuesday night, and I'll be racing in Ireland next Saturday and then on to Zurich. And one other thing, I went to East Tennessee State University, not University of Tennessee, which is 2 different universities.
Well, let's keep the record straight. Ray Flynn, congratulations to you, and the best of luck along the way.
Thank you very much.
Bob, the winner now. Let's go back to you.
That's right, out of Johnson City, Tennessee, my home state. Marty, this is the first annual event of this type held here in downtown Minneapolis. The Wheaties Mile is going to be an annual affair. How will what happened today? What took place here? How will that set up future events? And will these runners go back and talk to other world-class athletes and say, hey, it's a great course? What do you feel their impression will be?
I think it's been very fortunate, and I'm glad to hear that it's an annual event. We've done races in Rome, in Rio, in Dublin, and Paris, and they haven't been as well organized. And I think the milers of the world will say, put this one in your notebook. This one is well organized. The course is fast. The weather is always great. And I think this has shown what the road mile concept can eventually be. We've had the Fifth Avenue Mile, which is a great race. We've had races in Paris, but we haven't had 6 preliminary races with the top runners in every division like this. This has really overall been the best road mile held so far, and this concept has been around now for about 3 years. So I hope that they will be back, and I'm sure that any of the men or women elite runners who were here this year will make sure they're back here again next year.
The Wheaties Mile, of course, just a part of a whole day of athletic competition called the Minnesota Sports Spectacular. A lot of rugby competitions, soccer, judo, jiu-jitsu, gymnastics taking place at Parade Stadium today. Tonight at 10:30 here on Channel 5, we'll have a special recap of all of the mile runs that took place here today and also all of the competition that took place at Parade Stadium. That's a special tonight at 10:30 here on Channel 5. Until that time, I want to thank Marty LaCroix from ABC Sports for joining us today, Rob Lear, who worked the finishing line, Joe Schmidt at the starting line, all the tremendous organizers that put this race together, and of course our technical people who had to string miles and miles of cable and set up 11 cameras down Nicollet Mall to bring us what really was an exciting first-time event and will become an annual event, the Wheaties Mile.